up into shallow water now. We're already seeing 7 feet on the depth sounder and dropping. This is where it gets a little stressful. Oh, that's the bottom. We're touching the bottom very gently here. Keep going, Dacia. Well, after 11 months of boat work, I'm finally sailing again. If you're new here, my name's Evan, and I've currently got my friend Esther on board with me. I've lived on my engineless sailboat Dacia for the last 6 years. On this week's episode, I'll be leaving Guatemala, heading east for Utila, directly against the wind. The goal is to get there to drop Esther off, but before I can start sailing there, I need to get over that shallow bank. So make sure to stick around so you can see if I make it. We're pulling the dinghy along at 6.5 knots at some points. I think the wind's probably coming up close to 20 knots, maybe 18. And we're about halfway, maybe 2/3 of the way to Guatemala. Okay, since I put in this new reefing system with the winch and the block, or the clutch, we're gonna practice putting in a first reef. Theoretically, this should go easier than it has been in the past. The purpose of reefing is to reduce the amount of sail that the boat is carrying. Oftentimes, too much sail will actually slow the boat down, so finding the right balance between wind and sail is super important. Reefing for me was always a bit of a pain with how I had this set up before, so I installed this winch and clutch a few episodes ago to make it easier. This is the first time I've tried using it, and I quickly notice I've done something wrong. I think I mounted this in the wrong direction. I think this has to go the other way. That's weird. That clutch, that clutch was installed backwards. It's a good thing I checked that before we went out to sea, because if I would have actually needed to reef at any point, I would have been able to make something work, but it wouldn't have been very good. So yeah, once we get on anchor, I'm gonna have to pull that off, flip it around, and then hopefully when I flip it, all the holes line up, or else I might have to drill 6 new holes. Yeah, so we'll see. She's sailing really good. I'm very happy with how everything's going, other than the reef points, but we'll fix that when we're on anchor. We'll have one more tack here, and then we'll be able to drop the hook. Burying the rail. I don't need to be heeled over this far. Yeah. It puts extra strain on the rig, but sea triangling it. Everything is going perfect. Sweet. Anchor's down. Now we need to cover the sail. Wow. We're making pizza. Oh, what a good day. Pizza and sailing. Can't really get any better than that. Yesterday, we sailed over here and I found out that the block clutch I'd put in for my reef thing was upside down. So it seemed correct, but it's not. So we gotta flip this. I think all I'm gonna have to do is upsize the holes on the wood block. All right, now that's done. We're leaving for Livingston. We're gonna check out of the country at Livingston. Rather than having to take the boat there, we're gonna take the dinghy, which will be a lot faster. And that way we don't have to actually anchor in Livingston, because it can be, I've had stuff stolen from me there before, so I don't really want to anchor there. And this way we can leave early in the morning tomorrow, get up through the canyon and out over the bar before or around high tide. If anyone's ever in Livingston, you should check out Casa Nostra. It's very nice. checked out of the country. Now, back to the dinghy and back to Dacia. Oh God, there's a log right there. We're back. That wasn't that bad. Kind of not that long of a dinghy ride. Good morning. We're about to head up the river to Livingston and leave. Yesterday we checked out of the country, so there's no need to even have to stop in Livingston. Hopefully we get there in time. It should take about 3 hours roughly, and high tide comes around 10:15, 10:20ish. So I want to get there a little bit before that so we can get over the shallow water safely and out into the Bay of Honduras and start sailing.
There's something in the water there.
The outboard's hardly having to work, and we're still moving along at 3 knots because we've got outgoing current. So we've almost got to slow ourselves down quite a bit because we're gonna get to Livingston too early, which means that we might be too soon for the high tide. We'll get to the opening at about 9:50, which is about 30 minutes before high tide. Then hopefully we can get over the bar at that point, which is kind of good because it's better to go a little before high tide, because if we do hit the bottom, tide should go up and hopefully lift us off of it. And the earlier the better, because the wind always seems to, the wind always picks up in the afternoon. So if we get out there earlier, it'll be less wavy, which will also be better because the waves will potentially make us hit the bottom. Thankfully, the wind hasn't quite picked up yet, and I'm hoping we can get out over the bar and raise the dinghy up out of the water before any substantial waves build. Because trying to get the dinghy out of the water when it's wavy really sucks. Coming up into shallow water now. We're already seeing 7 feet on the depth sounder and dropping. We're about an hour before high tide, but we're still pretty much at high tide. So I think we're good. I've just idled the outboard up quite a bit, and we're gonna try to plow through this. Hopefully we have enough forward momentum to get through. It's not very wavy out, so that's okay. And if something happens, hopefully we can get pulled off. Okay. Goodbye, Guatemala. This is where it gets a little stressful. The reason this is shallow here is because the river obviously spits out a lot of sediment, and then when it gets out into the ocean, it settles out in this area. So it builds up and starts to get shallow. There's really no way to tell where the deepest part of the channel is. Yeah. I'm hoping with the weight of the boat and the momentum, if we do touch, usually it's just like kind of waves of mud, and we will hit it and just plow through it and carry the momentum. My depth sounder is 2 feet below the water line, meaning we're in about 5 foot 9 inches of water. Oh, that's the bottom. We're touching the bottom very gently here. Again and again. Still holding 3.6 knots. We just keep going, Dacia. Keep going, dinghy. Come on. I've been through this area 3 other times before, and I knew it was going to be close like this. But I wasn't expecting to be bumping the bottom nearly as much as we were here. 4 feet, so 6 feet. All right, we're almost in 10 feet of water. I think we made it. Oh, that was a little stressful for a second. Good job. You did it. Well, I guess the bottom paint I put on is probably not on there anymore. So a little job I need to do, just to help secure the anchors, is install this guy. This is my secondary anchor, and for the longest time there used to be, well, this used to be attached to here where the teak was, and that just prevented the secondary from getting pulled overboard. Now I'm gonna install it probably somewhere here. Okay, now with that installed, it's time to jump in the dinghy and get it ready to pull out of the water. So now we're gonna slow down. I feel like there's enough wind for us to sail slowly. We're gonna try to put the dinghy up before it gets too wavy. Maybe you're a little confused why I've been pushing my boat with the dinghy. Well, I'm dumb and don't have an inboard engine. So there's a handful of times I've got to use my outboard to push Dacia. However, that's going to be ending soon because I'm actually planning to sell it. Storing it on deck is just a huge pain in the ass, especially by myself. And as you're about to see here, it's not even easy with 2 people. Alright, outboard's in. Now we gotta put the dinghy on deck.
Oh my god, that's
Don't fall overboard, please. Okay, I want you to go back to the winch, please. As I knock you overboard with the dinghy. Now slowly lower it. no. Oh, yeah. Watch your fingers. Nice and green. That was a pain in the ass, but the dinghy's tied down now, so we can finally raise the sails and start heading out of here. GoPro. I think it got hit. Alright, we're gonna just tack right away, and then that'll be putting us on course. Okay, keep it moving. Alright, we're pretty much ready to go now. Dinghy's put away, we're sailing. And I'm really tired, but happy. Alright. Now this is the part of the video where you normally would get to see some beautiful drone footage of Dacia gracefully sailing through the water. Music building, you think to yourself, wow, what a gorgeous boat, look at her go. But instead, this happened. That's water. My drone went overboard. I went to try to launch it like I always have, and for some reason it just went whoop and went upside down. That sucks. Well, I guess no drone shots for the trip north back to Florida, and unless I can somehow get one there, then I probably won't have any drone shots crossing the Atlantic either. And the drone shots are always so nice. Well, no time to sit and be sad about that. I've got to put a reef in the main. Here is the actual first time reefing using this new setup. And it works quite well now that it isn't backwards. All right, I need to tack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ready?
Yeah.
Did she make it? Yep, even slamming into that wave. That's good. That was a big wave over the deck. This is less relaxing now.
I don't know why I did it.
That's right.
Okay.
Well, it's been pretty rough-ish. It's just choppy little waves, which make things really uncomfortable. But the sun here is gonna set in about an hour. I still haven't really slept at all, so I'm pretty tired. But the boat's doing really well. So are you, right? You're doing good?
Feeling good.
The next morning, I tried getting some food down. I had been awake most of the night because of cargo ships passing by, dossiers slamming into waves, and the stresses that come from the first sail out at sea in a while. Last night was not easy. I got seasick for the second time ever, and it was quite rough. I don't know why, but the sea state was just kind of super lumpy, very uncomfortable. But Esta did amazing. Somehow didn't get sick at all, so that's good. But now the wind has died off, as I thought it was going to, because we didn't make it far enough north. So we're gonna have to sit here for a few hours, and hopefully the wind will come back. And I'm too tired to do a bunch of recording. It's coming up on 1 p.m. The wind has finally filled in. I've been sleeping all morning to try to catch up for being awake all night. And we're finally moving along here at 5 knots. Well, I haven't really recorded for 2 days. It's been quite rough, and now the wind's finally died off. We're about 10 miles from Utila, and this afternoon the wind should fill back in, and we should be able to anchor there before sunset. But that just means we've got to sit through a few hours of this. It might get pretty hot too, once the sun comes up more. So the wind pretty much died off completely, but it's filled back in slightly out of the west, and that could help us get to Utila here. But I dropped the mainsail, and when I did that, I noticed that the car this guy broke free. Something was obviously chafing up there. I think earlier in the sail, I noticed that the halyards were kind of wrapped, and that must have allowed it to chafe through or start, and then it tore. But the problem is the car is still stuck way up there. So I'm gonna have to climb up there and bring that car down. Before you get carried away saying how I should be wearing a harness, let me remind you I'm usually out here completely solo. There isn't really a good way to climb the mast while being clipped in. The harnesses are clunky and catch on things, and trying to clip a carabiner to the mast as I go up adds to the likelihood of my hands slipping and causing me to fall. Pretty rolly up here. There's really no good way to go about this, and with Esther being inexperienced handling a halyard and winch, the safest way for me to do this is to free climb it. Why did you get rollier as soon as I started climbing? Even if I was hoisted up the mast by her with the halyard, if I were to let go, I would be stuck swinging and smashing into the mast. So, like I said, there's really no good way to go about this. Sometimes we just gotta do what we gotta do. Of course, with how easily the car slid down the track after I touched it, there might have been a way for me to do this without needing to climb the mast. But of course, hindsight is 20/20. Well, that was kind of scary. There's Utila. Hopefully we can get on anchor before it gets dark. We're coming into Utila now, and the wind is directly against me, so we're gonna have to tack our way. It's a pretty wide open area to sail through, but there's some reefs on each side, so I'm gonna have to kind of tack my way between them. And the wind is filling in, which is nice. It was pretty low there for a second. Now we've got enough wind and the seas are flat enough that it should make this pretty easy. I was wrong. As we got behind the lee of the island, the wind dropped lower than I was expecting it to, making it difficult to point high up into the wind. In light winds like this, I often need to back the head sail in order to push the bow of the boat through the wind. In anything above 10 knots, the Genoa usually can slot through the inner forestay fairly easily, but today wasn't one of those days. Of course. As the sun started to set, we continued to make minimal progress into the anchorage, and realized on top of the light wind we were working against, there was also an outgoing tidal current. I decided to cheat, dropped the dinghy in the water, which was a challenge in itself, and pushed ourselves into the anchorage right as daylight left us. So I gotta be honest. Yesterday, I kind of cheated coming into here, but I suppose I'll make a couple excuses for myself. Part of the reason was that I'm trying to get to Utila to drop my friend off and then leave for Florida as soon as possible. So I am in a rush, which is kind of different for me. Usually I don't rush these sort of situations and plan my weather routes a little better. This one was kind of like, okay, well, I have to leave now, so we're going and just gonna make it work. And when we came into here, the wind actually said that it would be good, but it wasn't, which obviously happens quite often. So when we were trying to tack our way up, there just wasn't enough wind to tack into this bay, and our line was just back and forth on the exact same thing. We might have been able to make it, but it would have taken probably like 2 or 3 hours to go 2 nautical miles. I was getting there very slowly. So since it was so flat, we dropped the dinghy in the water and pushed ourselves here, and it worked out really well. Now the Q flag is up, and we're gonna go check into the country soon. Just want to eat breakfast first. We're going to check in now, but there's 3 other boats in the anchorage, and 2 of them are both from British Columbia. Dacia looks good. Well, I messed up pretty bad. So my passport, when I came into Guatemala back in February, they stamped me for only 60 days, but usually you always get 90 days in Guatemala as a Canadian, so I didn't even look at it. And when we got here, quickly realized that I had overstayed in Guatemala, and the visa time is the same between Guatemala and Honduras. So technically I had overstayed on my passport, but there was a bunch of stuff I needed to do, or this bunch of stuff they needed to do to allow me to stay here. It was totally my fault, but it's all sorted out now and we're checked into the country, and tomorrow I have to leave. So yeah. So on top of messing up with my amount of days and stuff, I was supposed to get a whole bunch of prints of paperwork to give to the port captain and immigration, and when I went to go print off my paperwork, I gave them my old passport. Maybe it was, yeah, I don't even know what to say. I just messed up in a bunch of ways, and maybe I'll explain this better over a voiceover. Time to take down the Q flag, since now I'm somehow legally in the country for a day. Well, after nearly running aground, getting seasick, and messing up my immigration paperwork, I think it's probably time to end this episode. Next episode, I'll be heading north to Florida, which ended up being a wildly fast sail. I think I averaged something like 6.2 knots over the course of 5.5 days. So please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on that. And as always, thanks for watching.